Hi, Dena.
Hi, Ashley.
I am so excited for this week's chat because, girl, it is a doozy of a week. And you and I have had some doozy of situations. So,
I feel like I'm getting bitch slapped by the universe.
and I'm feeling it all the way over here.
Right? It's like all of these lessons keep coming around, and I'm like, wait, why does this look familiar? Why does this feel familiar? And it's like, oh, because you're needing to learn these lessons.
Again, finally,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
I follow a few different spiritual folks too, and I love that, everybody's talking about this time. And you tell me, is it just this time of year? Is it this time in our life where, in astrology, like planets are aligned a certain way, whichever way you want to look at it, we are here to really learn the lessons of, let's say, things that we picked up in childhood as defense mechanisms or protection, as you like to say, and I love that term, protective mechanisms.
Well, and it's like rejection is protection, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about it intuitively, what I've been picking up is that we all, no matter who you are, where you are, we all could use a little change in our life, right? But we got so comfortable in the thing of like, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I have time for that later. Oh, I can do. And then when COVID happened, later was now. Right. Yeah, and then totally. Now what had happened was we had psychologically insulated ourselves, and no one realized that they were psychologically insulated, even though they felt normal and they were at home. And I'm not talking about the people who went to work every day and the frontliners. I'm talking about those of us who switched to smart working and those of us who were home and weren't used to that. And then what I feel like is, and then when everything sort of is going back to normal, people are starting to question everything around them, like everything. And so after you've been detoxed from people, your job, going to work every day and traffic, all of that, we all are literally rethinking, going, wait, is that the best use of my time? Or wait, do I want that for my family? Or wait, so we've been given the opportunity. And now it's just being shoved in your face. So right now, while Mercury is in retrograde, and I'll explain it for some people who don't know, it's like, it's the easiest way you can do is Mercury happens 3, sometimes 4 times a year, but all the planets go clockwise, right? And when Mercury goes in retrograde, it casts a shadow and it makes everything seem like it's going counterclockwise, which is miscommunications. You lose things, you find things, people come up from before. So it, on top of everything else, there's Mercury that's intensifying the way we feel, whether it's depression or sadness or all of these things, right? So now with this Mercury, it's really about amplifying and learning. And I recently had an old friend come into town he came looking for the old me, right? And this was my first opportunity in a long time to have someone do that. And it had been 15 years since I had spent time with this person. And when I wasn't behaving or showing up who he wanted me to be from before, oh girl, the resistance and the attacks and everything on my character, the gaslighting, I was just sitting there going, how did I used to accept this? But the sad thing is that was normal for me, because I was around a lot of narcissists and I was around a lot of abuse, verbally, emotionally, mentally. And in my sweet little brain, I used to think, oh, well, if he's an asshole to everyone and he's nice to me, I must be really special and different. Right? But what I've learned is that's so unhealthy and that's so messed up. And I'm like, clearly he was called an a-hole for a reason by lots of time, but I'm just seeing those things now. But that's because that's what I had learned and that's what was normal for me. I feel like a lot of people are being forced with all of that right now, and maybe some people don't have the tools on which to use and which to do, right? So if you, Ashley, are confronted in a situation, do you feel like you know what you're doing now when it's a toxic environment?
Well, I was just about to say, let's put it in context for some folks, because when you say he was looking for the old Dena, what does that mean?
The old Dena was the Dena who used to think it was funny when he would say inappropriate things. The old Dena was, I would drink with him and I would party with him. He took it personally that I was vegan and gluten free because I wouldn't eat what he wanted me to eat, and I wouldn't have fun and overindulge. And I was like, it's not a choice. I'm doing it for health reasons. I'm actually celiac in the sense as it makes me so sick. And he didn't care. And before, I used to be such a people pleaser where I would eat gluten or drink alcohol, even if it was bad for me and it made me sick. And then I was like, well, wait, so you don't care how I feel, but you want me to do something that makes you feel good. So it's not about me. You didn't come to see me. You came to have me service you.
Yeah, and just because we talked about this a little bit, so and he was saying that you were ruining his good time, right? And really, we talked about this a little bit last time that the two of us were on about the alcohol and whatnot, and how people, like, we're a mirror to the other people in front of us, and vice versa. Everybody is a mirror to us, right? So he was having to look at probably things that he didn't like. If he was completely comfortable in himself, he'd just go, yeah, whatever. Okay, you do you, boo. I'm going to be over here having my glass of wine. And but clearly that didn't happen.
Well, and thankfully this time around it took me 4 days instead of 40 years, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're confronted with that and now you realize not every friendship has to change, but a lot of them do, in the sense is it's important to compartmentalize, right? There are certain people, most people you shouldn't have any expectations from, right? I mean, yes, respect is one of them, but we can't really expect anything from anyone, in the sense is that we can only control ourselves. But if someone comes to disturb our peace in an abusive way, it is very important to protect your peace.
Right.
And I think that looks different for a lot of people, because when I was trying to protect my peace, I kept getting gaslit. And thankfully, I've been in therapy for so long, I was like out of body experience, in the sense is that I was like, oh, this is what I used to fall for. This is what used to guilt me. This is what used to make me feel bad. This is why I would sometimes, when someone wants you to do something, then you have to sit with them going, oh my God. And before, I would just do anything to shut them up. So then I would just do it. And then they always got what they wanted.
Right. And you talked about this a little bit this morning on your social media video posts, which also I want to make people aware of. The social media pages that we have, Dena, thank you, records a message every day that somehow seems to fit what's going on in the world and life.
Isn't that crazy? It's intuitively,
I know.
It's so weird.
It's great. So every morning I get a little kick in the ass of whatever she's talking about for the day, and then we put that up on our social media pages. So that is different from the podcast, if you didn't know that, and you can follow those as well.
Yes.
I think it's important for people to understand kind of what we're talking about as to where all this originates from. So in childhood, we pick up these behaviors, right? Because we're in an environment where we don't know, if somebody ignores us, or if somebody is abusive to us, a parent. This all starts in your home, right? It could be a sibling, it could be parents, it could be just someone in your life. But in childhood, you pick up these defense mechanisms, and so as you grow older, you've learned how to deal with people in a certain way. For me, it was, I never felt heard in certain situations. So now, my defense mechanism, my protection of myself, it was always to get loud, to scream a bit, to, anger, or not anger even, just like I need to fight and defend myself sort of response. And I think that served me very well in the household I grew up in, because that's how our family communicated. Everything escalated and escalated, and you didn't get hurt if you didn't yell. So, I have to thank that little girl for protecting me back then, because she did the best she could. But now, as an adult, that doesn't necessarily serve me well in relationships. And
No.
so I've seen these
And you have
patterns
to
over and
be,
over.
yes, but not just you, any of us, myself included, is, information gets lost in translation when delivered with emotion, right? So if we want to feel heard, but we're feeling really defensive, people aren't going to hear what you're saying. They're going to respond to the defensive vibe, right? The
Exactly.
energy that you're. So that's really important to work on. Is you could say whatever you want, but so if someone's here going, "You're such a jerk," and then they want you to come here, but if you stay here, eventually they're going to come down here. But that's the really growing part, and part of the tools is not being triggered to go here.
Well, right. And I was, going to say, like, that's not a natural response for me, and probably for a lot of people, like that trigger when that happens and I feel somebody pushing me into a situation that's not comfortable for me, my gut reaction is to go, and defend myself and defend my point of view and all of these things. And yeah, to your point, it's like, no, now I'm trying to, and this is what's coming up in this Mercury, right? This is the shit we're having to deal with. It's come up for me a couple of different times in a couple of different ways, but, sitting with it for a minute and going, okay, Ashley, what did we just learn? What did Dena and I just talk about? What are our tools we've talked about? We sit with it for a minute. We respond with kindness, but with firmness in our point, and we make our point, and we're kind, and we don't let it disturb our peace. And we move on. And that is easier said than done sometimes, but I am practicing that.
Well, and it's amazing because you're doing great work, but the goal is to have non-attachment, right? So the non-attachment is like, I'm not attached to how you respond, and I'm not attached to any outcome, and that is easier said than done, believe me. And but the fact is that I find you can find peace quicker and easier when you practice non-attachment. So then people will go, well, what do you mean? I'm really attached. Like if my boyfriend said this or my husband said that and it hurt me, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. And I'm not saying you can't be hurt, but we get disappointed and triggered when we allow others to disappoint us because we have an expectation of an outcome or something that we're expecting. The goal is hopefully someone will show up for you in the way you hope them to. But if they don't, you can be disappointed, but maybe something's going on with them that you don't know. Maybe, so maybe you could check in and come at it in a different way, going, ooh, they might be having a really bad day today.
Yeah.
Or if it happens more than once, you might want to sort of ask yourself, is this the relationship that I want?
Right.
Because you can't change anyone or anything. You can only change yourself. And I cannot express that enough, because sometimes I will say to people, you have to be happy with your spouse exactly the way they are now, and your relationship can get better. Because if you keep trying to change them, they are going to, depending on who they are, sit in resistance and then become stubborn because they don't want to be told what to do.
Right. I would.
So you're totally, right? It's like, how dare you? I did that in my marriage, which was the biggest mistake in my marriage, is I thought I saw the potential in him and I could change him. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. It actually worked against me in so many ways, right? And I don't like being that person that wants to change people, because I want to change myself in the way somebody else wants me to change, right? But we learn, and as we learn, then I'm learning to not slap pretend fake narratives. So my assumption is a fake narrative. Because it's not true. I mean, I really would ask everyone to look deep inside, and all of those what ifs and yeah buts and those narratives that we slap of the worst case scenarios, how many times has that worst case scenario ever happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, well, what would we do if we didn't spend all of our time stressing and with anxiety?
Well, and trusting yourself enough too, to if that worst case scenario does happen, that A, this might not be the right environment for me to begin with, and B, I'll figure it out. I'm a grown woman. I'll figure it out. So it's just having that faith in yourself and the universe that, you can handle it.
Totally. And I wanted to talk about childhood stuff and childhood things. A lot of times, depending how far we are in our journey of healing, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times people will keep carrying the storyline of childhood. Mm-hmm. And at some point, we're going to have to detach ourselves from that, because that is who made you who you were then, and part of who is making you who you are now. But a lot of things that are happening in these moments are helping us develop who we are now. And we may miss out on that because we're still stuck in old narratives, old records. You know what I mean? That we tell ourselves. Yeah. It's like, I like to call it the merry-go-round effect. It's like you're on a merry-go-round, and when you want to jump off and your friends are spinning and you're like, I'm dizzy, let me off. And you're like, yeah, but what if I fall and hurt my ankle? Or yeah, but what if I did it? Yeah, but, and then once you jump, you're like, oh my God, why did I do that sooner? That wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
That's the things we do in our head.
Totally.
We gaslight ourselves and freak ourselves out.
Totally. Yeah.
I was talking to my therapist about this last night, about what do you do when someone comes looking for the old you. And I said, if you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or it's somebody, let's say, who you used to drink with, or if you're a gambler, gamble with, or whatever it is that you're not doing anymore, and they come looking for you, and you have no desire to be in that friendship, then just don't respond. Mm-hmm. And it's not ghosting them or anything like that. It's just that you don't want to lead someone on in a direction, and hopefully they'll get the hint. With him, I feel in a different way is that if somebody's coming that I haven't seen in a long time, I will say, hey, it's been such a long time. I would love to get to know each other with where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. So there's two ways you can do it. If it's someone that it's like a no-go, like, no, okay, cool. But if it's someone that you're curious, then, I would offer that.
Yeah, well, I had a different little situation come up this past week, too. Thank you, Mercury. Of somebody that upset me because I expected her behavior to be different in a situation of supporting me as the way I support her. And, this happens with people all the time. And I was a little surprised by her, what I thought was just a flippant response. And so as she was continuing to text me, I stopped responding because I thought, well, you know what? This just isn't cool. If she's going to be that way, blah, blah, blah. And then come to find out, we've all been through a lot with COVID and whatnot. And she lost a friend to suicide who didn't respond. So she was triggering me. I was triggering her. My little girl self-defense mechanism popped up of just don't say anything and walk away and ghost, more or less. And she called me out on it. And after I sat and talked to her and said, well, you really hurt my feelings and this is why, she was like, what? I would have never done that to you on purpose. Here's why I said that. I didn't think this was such a big deal. I'm so sorry. I will do this right now. And I was like, oh, shit. Then I felt like an asshole, because I just didn't communicate. So part of it for me, too, is like, it's tough to navigate and sift and sort of like, you're looking at people and going, are these people I want to keep near me, and yes, I do, of course, but I don't know, because some of them, yes, I think are healthy to keep around. And then I've got others that pop in that are from the past that I feel like are kind of almost a test right now of like, are you going to step right back into this the way you are? But I think what you just said is the answer to that. It's like, hey, when we hung out before was a different time, and I think, we should chat about where we are and get to know each other differently. Maybe before we hang out, because I don't want to be put in that uncomfortable situation,
Totally. But do you feel in that conversation before you had it that you slapped your own narrative onto it, and maybe that's why there was a miscommunication?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And she didn't know that she had done anything. And so I left her in the dark, and how's she going to learn from that either? How are we going to learn and grow? And we had the best conversation after that. And it was like, no, She's like, you
So
always have to tell me if I've upset you. And I'm like, okay, I'm not used to that. I'm not used to being heard. As a child, I wasn't used to that. So I'm like,
yes.
oh, I can say this to you and you're not going to get mad about it? Okay.
Well,
Who
and we
knew?
also come from the generation of children are seen and not heard.
Right.
Right? That's my generation of children are seen and
Yeah.
not heard. And also, it's like for me, I remember there were times, and it's hard not to be resentful. There were times when I was getting abused growing up, and I would go on a payphone and I would call my dad. And I would tell my dad every day, and my dad would be like, now's not a good time, blah, 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 blah. The worst part of all of that is that my dad denies that till this day. So forget about not even being heard, but when something horrible happened to you and he didn't even protect me from it. And then, so for a long time, I'm not an angry person, but well, at least I thought I wasn't. But then I realized I would be passive aggressive. And that
Right.
was my way of sort of getting back without looking unattractive and mad.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And that's not who I want to be either, though.
Right. Me neither.
Right? And so it's exhausting when all these emotions go up and down or up and down. And like for me, with readings or sessions that I do too, sometimes people get mad if something hasn't happened exactly the way you tell them, because
Right.
a lot of people want sessions and
Sorry,
they'll
Dena.
go, no, it's okay, but they'll go, well, you said blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, but were you able to try to do A, B, C, and D that we talked about? Well, no. And I'm not saying, oh, that's what makes it right. But do you see, too, is that how we'll slap a narrative of it's not me, it's her? Meaning she told me it this way. So where's the responsibility, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And I think we could all use a little bit more of that, because a lot of the deflecting and projecting and everything that's going on in the universe with whatever it is you believe in, vaccines, political, like all of that, no one wants to hear anything anyone's saying, because we're all like, whoa, dude, no, right? And so I think it's really important to start off going inside first and start hearing what you want and how you feel and what's going on with you, because a lot of us sometimes will go look to others for our happiness.
Well, or
And
we
so
spend so much. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go.
We spend so much time reacting to what somebody is saying to us and trying that on in our minds. At least I do. Of like, oh, do I want it that way? Should I do it that way? Stop it. Go. Be clear on what you want, and that takes a minute to sit with and figure out sometimes, right? And then have the courage and the self-confidence to speak up and say exactly what it is that you want, and see what happens,
Totally. But sometimes people say they want the truth and they don't. I will give you an example. One time, years ago, my sister used to say, why don't you like me? Why don't you like me? You can tell me, I won't be mad. And I said, it's not that I don't like you. I don't like the way you treat me. And that has been used against me till this day. But she switched it to, I'll never forget the day you said you didn't like me. And it's just like, and then my old self is like, see, this is why I don't have conversations with people. See, this is why I don't tell anyone anything. Because they twist my words, they say all this crap that I don't say, and then it's super frustrating. And it's like, I can only change who I am. I can't change the way people receive it. I can try to do my part on the way I deliver it.
Right.
But I cannot be responsible to the way you receive my information, because your filter is skewed in a way from your childhood or your relationships or your whatever. So it is so important for us to, again, look inside, because it's 50-50. It's never just someone else. And I'm not talking about, and by the way, just so anyone knows, I'm not talking about people in very abusive relationships or people who are, I'm talking about, a lot of us where we are just trying to figure this out as we go. And as much as we want to tell our truths and say, sometimes it's not a safe space. So then we don't, and then we people please.
Agreed. Yeah, and sometimes you have to do that for your own survival, right? I mean, like I said, I'm really grateful to my little inner child when I was a kid in that household, because I think I did the best I could, and I navigated for my, for a lot of different reasons. But now I think what happens is we get triggered in normal conversations with well-meaning people, right? We get triggered, and our instant reaction is to go back to this scenario that we're familiar with, we think is happening, and it probably isn't.
No, it isn't, but here's what happens. You're triggered because it's a familiar feeling.
Exactly.
Right? And so the inside of you, right, is like, uh-oh, this is literally like fight or flight, like what's happening, because it's a familiar feeling. If you go inward and course correct and start self-talking, going, hey, Dena, you're safe. I can take care of you. We're in an environment where you're the grown-up now. And, you can take yourself out of this situation. And sometimes, let's say for people who can't and they're stuck in a situation because they can't move or they have kids or whatever, go to the bathroom, go upstairs, go in another room, go, oh my gosh, don't say, I can't deal with this now. Say, gosh, I really just need to go to the bathroom, or I really need to just wash off my face. Give it 10 minutes, 5 minutes, because the energy will shift. And that intense energy generally will last 90 seconds of like, damn you. But I'm talking the intense energy of our going like, oh my God. You won't stay like that the whole time. If you can talk yourself through the first 90 seconds, you'll be able to work through it. But most of us don't want to go through that 90 seconds, so we'll do everything we can in order to avoid it. Do you understand what I mean? So it's like you'll do anything you can to avoid someone yelling at you or whatever.
Yes, of course.
And so in that sense is like, okay, we're going to keep people pleasing. It's like the merry-go-round effect, where it's like if you go through the 90 seconds and then that person gets it all out and they calm down, then you'll realize that they don't stay up there for that whole time, and you actually can work through something.
Yeah.
That's easier said than done.
Totally.
But I am saying it takes practice, and once it's practice, it just becomes normal.
Which I can't wait.
I know. It really is.
It still doesn't feel naturally normal to me. I still have to stop and go, talk myself through it, walk away, come back, respond.
Well, and you'll be surprised that people get incensed when you do not engage in the behavior that they are trying. So that is the most important part, to not get baited into.
Sure, because we are setting a boundary when we behave that way too. Like, we're taking back control of how we want to feel. So by stepping away, I'm saying, this isn't okay. I'm taking a step back. We try to communicate. They may be so used to getting their way that they're going to come back up here and push. So, yeah.
And they're going to call you controlling. They're going to say, you're so controlling. You're so manipulative. You are so... And it's like, ooh, is that me or you? Because you're doing that right now. And that's what you're trying to do to me.
Yeah. It's like, okay. But, you're establishing how you want to be treated. And I think, and I know I'm going to have to go through this too. But... it's the most important thing. I think you can't continue to allow someone to just push and push and push.
But in fairness to a lot of other people, which I think it's so important, is that sometimes we are so beaten down, right? And it has become so normal that we don't have, not meaning we, but a lot of people don't have the confidence to set the boundaries, or they don't even know what boundaries look like because they're so skewed, right? So I recommend listening to a podcast, Life in the New Normal, or in a podcast in general, to hear what that language and that verbiage sounds like, to hear conversations with people having healthy conversations, because you're going to have to relearn what that looks like, because your boundaries that you may have wanted in your 20s is very different in your 30s, and extremely different in your 40s, and then very, very different in your 50s,
I don't know
right?
what you're talking about.
Right. What you talking about, Willis? So, and I think that that is important, is it's the subtle changes, right? Where we do get the profound impact.
Right.
So the subtle change would be if someone is constantly berating you and whatever, and you're constantly getting defensive. Let's say it happens 5 times a day. Why don't you not engage 1 time a day? And then you could keep going from there. Then 2 times a day after a week. And it just subtly, it's like just tiptoe in the shift of like, hey, don't talk to me like that. That's hurtful. Or, this makes me feel a specific way. Because if we say, you make me feel, then we're making them responsible and then they get defensive. If we say, I feel, no one can argue with how you feel, right? And so I think it is so important for right now, with everything going on in the world, people need to realize that these things are happening for us, not to us. So it's to accelerate our learning process.
Yeah, and I totally recognize that too, because when these things come up, I'm really grateful that I do follow and have you, and other spiritual teachers to sort of listen to, because they give you a heads up. It's like having a little cheat sheet for what's about to come. And it's like, okay, I'm bracing myself for what's about to happen,
For like people who are listening or whatever, a lot of us in a certain time in our life were made to feel guilty for
Exactly.
wanting to do kind things for ourselves.
Right.
And, in religious things, I don't think self-care is a big thing. I think it's more selfish if you care about yourself, which that's sort of what I was taught, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so then you feel guilty and I'm not supposed to, and I'm supposed to be doing. So I think a lot of people need to learn that it is okay to take out time for yourself, and you have to stop justifying it.
Totally. And, being raised Southern Baptist and reading the Bible, I think the Christians are the worst, it's, and I grew up that way, so I can say that. I mean, there's this idea that, well, Jesus said, turn the cheek, 70 times 7 or whatever, and forgive. Well, when you get to a point where you learn what forgiveness actually is, and that forgiveness is for you to grow and let go of things, you start to look at that differently, and you go, oh, wait a minute. Jesus didn't mean keep getting slapped and take the abuse 70 times. He meant forgive yourself for what you didn't know, learn from it, walk away. Do whatever you have to do. And I think there's, just so much of this, like you were saying, this guilt. And I think we're here because we're supposed to live our best lives. We're supposed to enjoy this, and if you follow teachers like Abraham Hicks or Michael Beckwith with Agape, they talk about how important it is to be here in a time like this, and being alive in a time like this. With all of this great contrast comes the opportunity for great new things to be rebuilt, personally in our lives and for the world. And it's just, what do we do with what we've been handed?
Well, and that is on a daily basis going to be something different, right? So every day you should greet every day with intention, going, I'm going to live my best life today. I'm going to try as hard as I can today, because to your point, as you said earlier, which I think is so important, is we don't know how to forgive ourselves for what we didn't know before. And so then we will carry the guilt, and then those people pleaser in us will constantly be apologizing for old behavior. And it's like I can tell you, there are times when I have looked for people on Facebook and I've literally going, I was a jerk to you back then, I'm so sorry. And they'll be like, dude, I don't even remember that. And it's so crazy how I carried that guilt for so long. And it's just, sometimes it's not true, but unfortunately we came up in a time where our parents didn't know, right? So we weren't taught that it's okay, you did the best you could, but you have to keep trying. I mean, it's not like, oh, don't do it again. You'll make mistakes again, but now you have to open your eyes subtly. You just open your eyes a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But just because you're changing doesn't mean everyone around you is changing.
Totally.
And you should not expect them to be changing, but you will have your relationship shift, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I just keep thinking too, you can't be there for somebody else if your cup is empty. Like you have to do the things that replenish yourself, or you get resentful, you're exhausted, you get sick. You cannot just show up and show up and show up and show up if you're not taking care of yourself. And I think that's another thing I learned the hard way when I was working in advertising, for ever and ever and ever. And you just go and you're on that hamster wheel. And eventually you're like, God, I'm depleted. I'm completely depleted. And that's about the time I met you.
Oh, there we go. Well, isn't it, though, that we're that way, though, because we want recognition? And so if you weren't hurt as a child and I was never hurt as a child, we constantly keep going to these places where, although it's a different form of makeup, it's the same lesson.
You're right.
You may have been in an environment where your efforts were not appreciated.
Right.
And so you just kept trying and trying and trying and trying. And that's what we're all sort of, I don't want to say guilty of, but that's that hamster wheel we've all gotten stuck on.
And it's like to no avail, right? You just go and go and go and go. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, I can't do this anymore.
And it's like, I feel sad for the people. Honestly, this is going to sound horrible, but I feel sad for the people now who didn't appreciate what I offered and what my part in a relationship, because I'm a really good friend. Right. And I'm I try to be a really good human. Well, and I consistently show up, right, as the same person. I'm not like all over the place, whatever. And I'm consistently there. But what I've learned is not everyone deserves that.
Right.
And not everyone gets that, because for me, I treat everyone special until they show me they're different. Right. And what I've been learning is that's not right either, though. Because sometimes I'm allowing someone in the door that doesn't even belong in the door.
Right.
Right? And so it's like we have to really be aware what are closed and open door scenarios. So like for me, in the sense is, let's say in the dating world or whatever it may be, if I look online and there's a man and he's everything I want, but he's a smoker, closed door. I'm not getting him to quit smoking, right? And so I think it's so important it's not that we are talking to you about, of course you compromise in certain things, but if you are living your organic life and your true self, you will vibrationally start attracting that. And that's the most powerful thing that we're talking about is people will respond and you will attract people by your energy, not by your behavior. If your behavior is backed by an energy, it's that energy that people respond to. Right. So the reason we're saying this in the way that we are is that you are in control of everything. And you don't even understand the power that you have. You are sitting on a gold mine, meaning you get to decide if you want to react or be crazy. You get to decide if you want to make it a big deal or it's not a big deal. That one for me, literally my therapist once said to me when something really big happened, he goes, Dena, it's not a big deal unless you make it a big deal. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't know that I had the option to not make something a big deal. Right. Because in my house, everything was super dramatic. Right. And my mom used to scream and yell and go, oh my God, it's the end of the world, and blah, 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 blah. Right? And so I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, it was that easy in that sense of like, it shifted everything in me. Yeah. Because I get to decide, and I'm not talking for, horrible situation. I'm just talking in our everyday lives in order to adjust and to start getting action, especially if you don't have resources to go to therapy and things like that. There are so many ways online and things that you can find your subtle changes, but I think it's so important.
We'll put a list together and put it in the show notes.
For sure. But when we wake up and we get dressed, I think it's important to have an intention for the day of today. I'm going to be aware on how I respond to the way people treat me, whether I like it or I don't. You just start off with a little and you become aware. And then the next week you may be like, now I'm going to respond to those people who, no. You're going to think about it and then you're going to reframe it and then you're going to reframe it. And then you're going to ask yourself, before you say something to someone, what am I hoping to get by saying this? Like, what am I expecting the outcome is going to be? Then if you have something to say about that, it's like, well, then you have an attachment to it. And then you have to learn to let go of that attachment because you can't control the way they're going to respond.
Right.
And it's all, it sounds all like we're simplifying, but it's not that simple in the sense is, yes, it does take work. And that's what they mean by doing the work.
Totally. And this is why I was saying I appreciate the heads up on Mercury retrograde this time, especially at this particular time in history, because it's supposed to be a doozy. And I felt like I had a little heads up that was coming, because if I didn't, I might have just instinctively reacted as I always do, even though I'm learning new tools and whatnot. But this gave me a chance to go, okay, something's about to happen. And it did.
And, yes, and you can't fight the universe.
Ooh,
yes.
Okay, what am I supposed to do differently here? And, now that I've seen how my friend responded, and I know that it's okay to, communicate differently, that then therefore hopefully will become a new pattern and a new trend that I can start moving forward. But I have to feel that trust in that process, right? To really make that subtle change that will have a profound impact.
And remember, not everyone deserves that communication. So like I said,
absolutely.
What are you hoping to gain by communicating? Meaning, if you want that friend in your life and there's someone, then definitely communicate.
Yes. That instance was just, two people being ridiculous. But it happens.
We get sensitive and we get butthurt, and
exactly.
we get that sort of, when we feel like we're rejected, it feels like other things too, and we're like, oh, and then we're making a big deal out of something that was not meant to be a big deal.
Right.
It's complicated sometimes, right?
It is, and that's why I was so excited that we were jumping on to talk about this stuff today, because I feel like you and I have access to it. Well, you especially have access to the intuition, and I have access to you, and other spiritual teachers and whatnot. And it's just, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who don't know that, and so it's nice to talk about
and
it.
Right now during this time, I encourage everyone, because I feel like the intuition is palpable, right? So as you were saying, when I did that message this morning, and it like fits the day, that's how in your head right now, what we're being given the opportunity is, you may have foresight that you don't realize it's foresight, and then you'll go, I swear I was just thinking about that. It's like, oh, well, was that the universe letting you know what's coming next? Or was that so that's why we sort of quiet ourselves, because if we start listening to our intuition, the answers are there. We just have to ask for help from our guides, our God, whatever it is you believe in. And I feel like it's like constantly being guided, right? But you have to be able to listen and hear it. And
it's true. I failed to mention that meditation plays a huge part in this too. I mean, I feel like you are a little bit of a cheat sheet for me sometimes, but yes, the meditation is huge, and the process would not be the same without it, because if you're unclear on what's going on inside, it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying outside. You still have to process it. You still have to quiet yourself enough, let thoughts stop coming in, so that you can step away and come back to it later with new information, that's been given to you.
Yes, and I encourage people to stop saying, I can't meditate, or I don't know how to meditate, or whatever it means. There's 5-minute meditations out there, guided meditations. I have ADHD. It is a struggle sometimes to meditate, but it is very important to set that time aside, like you said, because as much as you don't think it changes or shifts, you will see your life shift in magical ways with meditation.
Totally. Oh my God. Yeah. And I do it every day now, and I never did before. And now I can't imagine not doing it. I think it's that important.
Well, and it helps us set our energy vibe for the day, right? It helps us like walk into the day being like, what's up? How you doing? Right? And so it's just so important, because I think that that when we scramble in the morning and we're all in such a rush, we have now lost control of our momentum and energy of the day, because we've given it away to every my thing keeps hitting it, to every fear, every narrative, everything. I think what meditation offers is there's a stillness, and then you decide sort of, and you allow yourself or don't allow yourself to shift in a way where you don't want to go.
Well, and I think in that stillness, you shut up for a minute. You stop the chatter in your mind and you just stop it. And to be able to focus on something like a fan or whatever's happening and just not allow any thoughts to come in is so powerful. Because if you do that for even a couple of minutes, your thoughts start to change and you start to see things differently. And that's the power of it, I think, which is so cool. But it doesn't happen if you don't.
Happy. Yes. Yeah. It makes me happy about you because I see the growth and the shift. And who can you give credit to for your change other than yourself? You did the work.
Right. I had some help too.
Yes, but a lot of us want a cheat sheet and we want to just bypass some of it.
Right.
And you will not get out of this earth without giving. You will not get out of this earth without getting what you've given, and vice versa, right? So it's like there is a lesson somewhere when you either treated someone in a specific way and now you're being treated that way, or you were unfair or treated unfairly, and then you have the opportunity to be in a situation where somebody else feels like they're being treated unfairly, right? And so sometimes it's like, oh, this was harder than I thought, and now I understand why that person had to pick someone else and not me or whatever. So if we're able, there's always something juicy we could take out of it and go, oh, I get that now.
Right.
Oh, I understand that. So then as you go through life, it's so much easier not to take things so personally, right? And just to go, oh, it wasn't about me. Man, I kept thinking everything was about me. I kept making it about me. I was the victim. They were being mean to me. They were disrespectful to me. No, they weren't. They were having a crappy day with their job or with their spouse or with their children, or something may have happened. Someone may have died. You don't frickin' know.
Right.
So when we fill our head with all of that stuff, is that really to calm you down? Because if it is, it's not working.
Exactly.
That is called gaslighting yourself, right? And so then you have to course correct and go, girl, like you need to calm down. This is not about you. Redirect yourself. Take a minute. Do some mantras. It's really, really important not to make everything about you.
Totally. Yeah, it'll shift your entire perception of everything. But it takes work. You have to recognize those moments and use your little subtle change, profound impact tools.
And those, by the way, subtle change, profound impacts are amazing because I bet you so many people will start to find their subtle changes and their profound impacts. And that is what's super exciting.
That is cool.
Because when they start to find that, then they start to shift and they start to get confident and they start to go, wait a minute. And then you're like, yes, it's working.
Exactly.
And so I think it's important that we all have these conversations, and so many people who feel lonely and are alone, whether they're surrounded by people or they're physically alone. I think it's important to be able to turn on YouTube, any place, and to hear people who are going through the same things that you're going through. And it's like, hey, we're here to support you. Right. Hey, it's interesting, but sometimes strangers on the internet are more available for me than some of my friends.
Absolutely, right? Because you can find someone that's speaking specifically about what you're going through. Almost anything you Google now is out there if you need some help on something, right?
Yep.
I mean, so your friends, no, not necessarily. They're not all therapists. They don't know how to help you. They're gonna, just tell you what you want to hear, probably.
Well, and we try to recruit them to our defense when someone does us wrong. But I encourage you to take a beat before you go and keep that narrative going. To stop and go, let me sit on this for 20 minutes and see if I do want to tell someone. If you want to tell someone, just tell one person. Because what will happen energetically is someone will go, oh God, poor Ashley, have you heard what's been happening to her? And then that person will tell someone, and then the game of telephone, the narrative gets lost. So now you're attached to all of that negative narrative that is going down. You have no control over it. And then that vibration, guess what? It's coming to look for you because it has your name on it. Do you see? So it's not like we don't want to talk to our friends, but let's make it constructive.
Yes, agreed.
you know? And so
Yeah.
I think that that's like, I think that that's something we could all use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, thank
This
you.
is so fun. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it was so fun.
It's
Thank you
been
for all the
so
insight.
fun to have this conversation. And girl,
Girl.
it is going to be a doozy of a Mercury. So buckle up.
Still.
It's going to be a
Awesome.
bumpy ride
Awesome.
until I think it's like October 12th or something.
Oh, good to know.
So,
thanks.
yeah, for everyone to know. There we go.
All right. Well, I love you. Yes.
I love you too. Mwah. Thank
See you
you.
next time.
And we will talk soon. Ciao.
Yes.